Hello gainers, Ralphie here on location on a beautiful little green island somewhere in the Irish Sea, and I am here to give you a bit more fitter philosophy where I share my experience of life coupled with the practicalities of Stoic based philosophy, because when we spend a little bit of time with this, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time, just a bit of time, it's amazing how it can improve the quality of our lives. And we are, excuse me a second, won't be a minute. There hasn't been a car here on this road for the last half hour, and I thought, great, it's all quiet, there'll be nobody around. The best laid schemes of mice and men gang after gley go often wrong, and lay us not that pain and fear for promised joy, but leave us not with pain and fearfulness for the joy that didn't happen. That's a poem by Robert Burns, well, part of it anyway. I'm not even going to bother editing that out, it's in there. So, where was I? Right, investments. I'm doing a series at the moment on investments, and the best investment we can ever make, without being selfish about it, is the investment in ourselves. And it's quite important that we try and keep a balanced perspective, put some stoicism into our personal philosophy, which is enhanced, adjusted and endorsed by the practical experience of our lives connecting with the world around us. It's one of the purposes of life, after all, is not just to live it, but basically to do the best to live it. And I've broken down investments into various compartments, and what I'm going to discuss, the particular compartment in this video, is investing in spirituality. And it's fine, people tend to regard investment as something you do with money, and that is an option. However, there are many types of investment. Investing in having more time, investing in friends, investing in our health, and investing in spirituality. And to cut to the quick, spirituality is more than religion. Religions can be fine, absolutely fine, and all the world's religions contain, well, practically all the world's religions contain good, decent, genuine people. Although you will always find that all the religions are a sanctuary for the corrupt and for people who manifest evil in their lives. But in terms of spirituality, I think it's worth regarding it as something which is more than part of a religion if we choose to adopt a religion. And it is coordinating the experience of life with developing our mind and understanding there is a level of consciousness which is beyond the mere physical and material. And when we recognize that and invest in it, we call it spirituality, and we become more spiritual people. When we do become more spiritual people, it's very simple in that you simply become more aware of life, more aware of the self, more aware of the purpose of life, more aware of the reasons for human behaviour, and more aware of that entity which we downsize into God. Whether you choose to believe in God or not believe in God, you're still believing in something. But I recommend that you always keep yourself open to adjusting, rearranging and recalibrating what you believe in based on the practical experience of life. I'm going to give you 3 tips to become more spiritually aware. Practical, simple stuff. It isn't big textbook complexities here. This is something that we all can do. If you follow these 3 steps, see what you find. I do notice that some people are more spiritually aware of others, but everybody has either a suppressed or enhanced instinct. And this instinct can develop by one, spending more time alone, listening more, talking less, and centering. Centering is where you stop still in a nice environment and simply become more aware without thinking about it, just by being instinctive about it. Follow your instincts in this. Be more aware of what's around you. Secondly, read books. Read books about spirituality. Not necessarily religious books, but about people's spiritual experiences, which may be near-death experiences, autobiographies which are life-changing events within them, and books which tell just a great fictional story, like Wind in the Willows. That's a great book. I'm trying to think of the author's name now. I think it's Arthur Graham. You'll find it in a Google search or whatever search engine you're using. Read books that help you gravitate to other people's spiritual experiences to help enhance your own. And finally, just be open to life's experience. It's very easy to institutionalize ourselves into our own lives, to close the doors on the room of our personal experience and become defensive and protective and not be vulnerable to the experiences of life. But if you foster that gentle vulnerability without exposing yourself to too much risk, it's all about the degrees involved here. But when you allow that little bit of vulnerability into your life and expand on it and go on that life adventure and see what you experience and don't deny it when it's not conforming to social norms. I'll give you an example, a very good illustrative example. When I was a funeral director, I went to a house, a very modest house in an industrial scheme. So basically poor quality housing, and often it's through no fault of the people who are there that they find themselves in that circumstances. These circumstances are imposed by society. And this little old lady had lost her husband, and she was sitting arranging the funeral with me, and she wasn't religious. You wouldn't regard her as being a particularly spiritual person, but she was able to talk warmly and happily about how the fact that when her husband died, she was holding his hand, and then she left him to sleep beside her, for her to sleep beside him in the same bed, because it was comforting to her. So it's absolutely fine. And then what happened was, a few hours later she woke up and her husband was there, standing at the side of the bed while his body was lying in the bed. So there was two husbands. He was standing at the side of the bed and he was reassuring her that he loved her, she'd always loved her, and he wanted her to never think of him with sadness, but to get on and live her life, because that's what mattered to him. Now that was a profound spiritual experience to her that she did not negate and relegate as a fantasy and an illusion and something a bit spooky. She simply accepted it. And when I saw her in passing in the street over the next few years, she was a happy, contented person in a lovely, lovely place, because she'd had that final message from someone she'd loved and spent so much of her life with, and it meant so much to her that it endorsed and made more positive her life after his death. These things, when they happen, they're not unusual and they're very spiritual, but you wouldn't call them religious. So be aware, gainers, that we're exploring a personal spirituality, and it may involve in religion, but it doesn't have to. That's the way of the world, That is the nature of life, and that is when we are investing in spirituality. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found this interesting, helpful, useful, and all the rest. And if you like what you see, click subscribe, etc, etc, etc. You know the drill. And we'll see you again for another episode before too long of my investment series. Not quite sure what it is, but you'll know when you watch. I'm Ralphie. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to leave you with this view down at the ford where the road crosses the river. Very elemental. It's a kind of water and earth elemental fusion thing. It's quite a spiritual place in some ways. Bye.